Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Zen Honeycutt, and I'm the founder and director of Moms Across America. We're a national coalition of unstoppable moms, and our motto is Empowered Moms, Healthy Kids. And our mission is to empower millions to educate themselves about GMOs, to get GMOs labeled as a first step to elimination, and to offer GMO-free and organic solution. And also, by the way, we educate about related pesticides to GMOs as well. And we like to say we take bold actions with velocity. We have campaigns and we march in parades. We have speaker series and lots of different events. We've got over 700 leaders and hosts that have caused events over the past 3 years in every state across America. And we just want to say a big shout out to all our moms who have taken on leadership in their local communities. We want to say thank you so much. So tonight we've been doing for this past month a series about connect with moms and defeat the dark act. And I'm very excited tonight to have a very special guest, Dr. Priya Advani. Hi, Dr. Advani, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, I'm just so thrilled. Thank you so much. I'm going to do a little introduction about Dr. Priya Advani and say why it's so special that she's here. First of all, Dr. Advani is a holistic doctor. She uses alternative medicine to treat chronic illnesses. She's a writer for the Huffington Post Health and Wellness, and she's the founder of the Advani Center for Integrative Wellness and Healing. She holds her doctorate in acupuncture and Chinese medicine from the Emperor's College of Traditional Oriental Medicine, where she graduated with high honors. Now, her background is very special to me, not only because I'm half Chinese, but because I've been there and I've seen the herbal remedies that they've used for thousands of years. This is a culture that has been around for over 5,000 years, using tested, tried, and true herbal medicines and treatments and remedies that have had the Chinese culture thrive. They're the largest in the world, along with India, and just an ancient sacred culture, and it's all based around their healing. And something that I found that was very interesting about the Chinese culture was that I don't know if you want to say in the olden days, but in the days when they had smaller villages, the Chinese doctors were given a stipend for every month or week that the family was healthy. And when they were not healthy, they did not get paid. So if the doctors didn't do their jobs, they didn't get paid. They just have a completely different kind of culture and perspective on medicine. So it's special for me to be speaking to a doctor with Chinese medicine. And it's also very special because I met Dr. Advani in Los Angeles when we were going to meet with our senators about HR 1599, which is what we call the Dark Act. They call it the Safe and Accurate or Affordable Food Act, and we call it the Dark Act for denying Americans' right to know. And a group of activists went to go speak with our senator's aide about the Dark Act and defeating that and voting yes for Senate Bill 511. And at the table of the group of activists was Dr. Priya Advani, and she had these amazing testimonials. And I thought, wow, this is a very busy doctor who's taking her time out to come to get involved in how our government works and our political system, and to speak out to our senators' aides. And I just thought that was really special, and I so appreciate your time and generosity, Dr. Advani, and thank you so much for being here. Could you tell us a little bit more about your background? Like, how did you learn about GMOs, and why go to a senator's aide's office and speak up about this?
Okay, so, I went through the whole medical school process to, study for my degree. And it wasn't until I, started my practice. I was doing a mentorship program with a fertility doctor who was very well renowned and in our field. And he mentioned something to me that really struck me. And he said, just remember, for your fertility patients, whatever you do, make sure that they don't eat soy. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because soy, according to a lot of studies that I've seen year and year again, in China, women eat soy for every single meal, and they have the lowest rate of breast cancer in the entire world. And then also, me being a vegetarian, I consume, a lot of soy in my own diet. And I thought, well, I need to, look into why. And I asked him, I go, well, why not soy? He said, well, 90% of it is GMO, or genetically modified. And I thought, what is GMO? I didn't even know. It's not something we learn in school. And if you ask any medical doctor even, they're going to tell you they don't learn a lot of nutrition. We get some, but we don't get a lot of it. And definitely not anything about genetically modified organisms. So that's what instigated my research and how I wanted to learn more about what it is. And as I did, it was around the same time I was also working on a detox program for patients, because, we have a lot of toxins in the environment, and, our foods and pesticides, which, I knew about that. But, and also patients came in for weight loss. That was a big thing. Well, as I researched it, and, I saw, yeah, well, there are points in acupuncture we can do in Chinese medicine to help with weight loss, but really it's about what you put in your body and the nutrition aspect of it. That's really important. And so I also learned about the toxins. So glyphosate was the toxin that just kept coming up when I was looking at GMOs, glyphosate, pesticides, herbicides. And that's what triggered me to really do more research and become such an advocate, because the more I found, the more horrified I was by all of the research and all the studies, and why in the world don't people know about it? Because I would educate my own patients. And, a lot of times, like, I had a patient who came in for the detox, and she never heard of GMOs, which most of them haven't. Mm-hmm. So that's what really, instigated that whole study of GMOs, and why I went to the senator's office, and why I've been very proactive, an advocate for labeling, an advocate for non-GMO food, is because I treat patients and I see chronic illness all the time. I see lots of illnesses all the time. And I can tell you, when we change people's diets, huge, amazing things happen, and they get better, they feel better, and we can relieve so many symptoms, so many diseases, just like by nutrition alone. And for me, as a mom, it's really important, because I want to know what's in my food. And now that I understand the science behind it, that is a whole other ball game. Like, I'm working with, both sides, the right to know, but the science, and, why don't people know? Why are we not allowed to know? And with Prop 37, which was the California labeling law that we were trying to pass, why was it that so many big companies tried to deny our right to know? That's what became a really big problem for me. And that's why I felt like it was very important, as a medical community, as a doctor, if we can't help our patients, then what good are we? What are we doing? It's really important.
When you ask a patient about GMOs and they don't know, it must be frustrating, because how are you supposed to treat them if they don't know what they're eating? If they don't know, if they don't know if they're reacting to foods that are GMO or not, it's very hard to know. And and one thing that I don't know yet, I haven't talked to my allergist about it, is when my sons are tested for soy or corn, well, is that GMO corn or soy? You know what I mean? That if they do the skin prick test, or if they're doing the test in the lab, how do we know? There aren't any tests for that. So it must be baffling for the medical community to properly treat your patients if they don't know even what they're eating.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like a big part of my practice is integrative medicine. I bring in the Western, as a doctor of acupuncture in the state of California. We're licensed as primary care practitioners. So I run labs all the time. I read labs all the time. I connect both Eastern and the Western medicine, which is very important. And, you know, what I find is when I'm working with a patient, first of all, it's educating them on what a GMO is. I think that's really step one, is for them to understand what it is, how is it different than organic food. Just that connection, I can't even tell you the comments, the shock that people have when they read.
We know what, most of us know what a GMO is, but for people who might be sharing this with their friends or loved one, can you tell us what you tell them about GMOs?
Absolutely. So basically, you know, I asked them, do you know what a GMO is? Huh? No. Okay. So GMO is genetically modified organism or genetically modified food. And basically, the story of how they started is there's a company, Monsanto, which is one of the biggest makers of herbicides, and the GMO. So what happened is they were selling this Roundup product, which has this glyphosate, and it's an herbicide, so it kills the weeds. So the farmers were spraying this Roundup on their crops, and guess what? The crops were dying. The weeds were killed, but guess what? They were losing their crops. So one day, Monsanto found a bacteria growing with this herbicide, and they took the DNA, injected it into some seeds, and voila, we get GMO, genetically modified seeds. So now this company patents the seeds. They sell it at very high profits to these poor farmers, and the farmers grow it, and in the seed, you have the chemicals, you have the herbicides and the pesticides and the chemicals sitting in that seed. And most of corn, like 90% of corn, soy, canola, cotton, and now sugar from sugar beets, and now they just came out with a GMO potato. Those are genetically modified. And I tell my patients, if you're going to eat them, you must eat organic. There's no question. And, you know, and I also talk about labels. I tell them, go home, look at your cabinet, pull out your products. If anything has cornstarch, high fructose corn syrup, soy lecithin, any soy derivatives, any corn derivatives, that's, if it's not organic, it's genetically modified. You're putting that into your body, and it could cause a lot of diseases. And so just that alone, I mean, obviously they come to me for the first time because there's something wrong. They need help with something. So, you know, and I tell them, we can reverse this maybe. We can help you. We can get you healthier and make you feel better. We just need you to work with what you put in your body. So that's usually what I explain to them.
Wow, that's great. I love the whole connection between the Roundup that they've been selling for 40 years now, and the complaints from the farmers that it was killing their crops. Because what people really don't understand is that genetically modified organisms are engineered just so that they can sell more chemicals. That's the main. They say, oh, we're making golden rice, but you know, a child has to eat 27 bowls of golden rice, which is, you know, more vitamin A, in order to get the recommended daily allowance. And genetically modified organisms are engineered so that the DNA has been altered. And our concern is that the DNA could also be altering, you know, when we ingest it, the DNA, I mean, we are what we eat, right? It could be altering the DNA of our children. We have a higher rate of cancer than we've ever seen before in our children. We've actually had geneticists tell our moms that it seems like there's like a much higher rate of rare diseases. And one geneticist told one of our moms that it seems like something is waking these genes up. And that's what GMOs do. They have promoters on either end of the new code that they want into the, you know, to be put into this plant. And these promoters wake the genes up. They can either silence certain genes or wake them up. And there's been no testing to show that waking genes up, you know, in this, may or may not be harmful to our children. So it's extremely concerning. I love how you share about it. Now, what do people say when they say, well, but I can't like, what do you say to them when they say, I can't eat organic, or it's so expensive, or you get resistance? What do you say to them when they give you resistance about that?
The first thing I tell them is cancer is expensive. Disease is expensive. Chronic illness is expensive. And it's not fun. So that's the first choice, okay? And then I tell them, you know, there are ways that you can eat organic. And I have patients that range from, you know, wealthy to not. And they have very different income levels. And especially the ones that I work with, the ones that can't afford it. And I teach them ways. Look, there's the farmer's market. And I tell them, go to your farmer's market. It's going to be less expensive. You can get organic, find an organic stand. You know, go the last hour of the farmer's market. They try to, you know, give things away for less money at that point. So go then. Grocery stores, a lot of the stores, you know, patients, if they can't afford, of course, like a Whole Foods. I mean, my favorite is the Santa Monica Co-op. I love their produce when I can't get to my local farmer's market, which I normally do. But if you can't afford the Whole Foods organic, then Sprouts. You know, there are other places nowadays. People are demanding organic, and you can get it for less if you just look. And like I said, the farmers markets are always the best bet. And I tell patients that try that. And when they do, they are pleasantly surprised. And I've had patients that don't have as much money. And can I tell you, they've completely changed their diet and they feel better. And even for their whole family, they don't eat. They tell me we don't need to eat as much because we feel satiated. Yes. Because without the chemicals, the chemicals make you more hungry. They process in your body biochemically different than the organic food. The organic food, real food, is more satiating to your body.
Yes, it's actually been proven to be more nutritious, and some studies have shown that, you know, to eat one peach or one apple or whichever type of fruit it was in this study, that's conventional versus organic or GMO or whatever, that there are actually more nutrients in organic. And it makes sense if you think about the chelating factor of glyphosate, which is sprayed on GMO food and on many non-GMO foods as well. We have to remember that it's sprayed as a drying agent on wheat and, I don't know about rice, but wheat and beans and legumes, barley, tea, many different types of foods. This glyphosate is sprayed as a drying agent just before harvest. And it's a chelator, and that means that it holds or makes unavailable the vital nutrients of any living thing it touches. So wouldn't it make sense that the food that is sprayed with this chemical would not be as nutritious and not have as many vitamins and minerals? I mean, it just makes sense. When my doctor told me at 30-something years old that I had borderline osteoporosis, I didn't have as much calcium in my bones as I should, and I was low in vitamin D, and I live in Southern California, I'm in the sun every day, I was like, something is going on here. I am sure it's attributed to the glyphosate, the chelating factor, which is also crucial to fight things like cancer and major illnesses. You have to have certain vitamins and minerals. And with glyphosate chelating, this can make it very difficult, I would imagine, for doctors to treat patients that are vitamin and mineral deficient, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And you brought up a really interesting point. So there was a study actually by these two doctors, Samsel and Stephanie Saref, and they found that there is an enzyme, the P450 enzymes, that are actually, there's a they have difficulties in working properly. And those enzymes are actually very important for the phase 1 detox in our bodies. Mm. And they're compromised. So it becomes more toxic to the body because now your body's not able to detox as well. So, you know, definitely. And then vitamin D also, they were showing that there's a biochemical process. I won't get into the whole metabolic structure, but it basically inhibits a specific metabolic process from happening. And because of that, it depletes these minerals such as vitamin D. And I see it in my practice all the time where patients come in vitamin D deficient. And what's interesting is a lot of the regular doctors, they don't check for vitamin D unless you ask them. And I always ask my patients, I want to see a vitamin D level, because even with, you know, a lot of chronic illnesses, they're finding people are vitamin D deficient. That's what the studies are coming back with. So we always check that. And then again, it's related, it's the glyphosate that causes these components, these metabolic processes to not work properly. And that's what they found.
That study that you mentioned was really revolutionary for many of us in thinking about GMOs. We were mostly focused on the foreign proteins of GMOs, and it was Dr. Anthony Samsel and Dr. Stephanie Seneff from MIT that came out with Seneff that came out with that paper. I believe it was almost 3 years ago now, almost, and it was really shocking because it related glyphosate to nearly 40 different modern diseases, which just sounds completely far-fetched and unbelievable. And many people and very respectable organizations actually ignored it or set it to the side because they didn't want to seem extreme. They didn't want to think like, oh, this chemical could be related to so many health issues. But as a medical doctor, I could imagine that you start seeing one and one put together. Well, wow, if something is chelating vitamins and minerals out of the body, and we don't have vitamin D, like let's just take vitamin D, for instance. What kind of illnesses and diseases could occur because you have low levels of vitamin D? Can you give us some examples?
Well, a lot of the autoimmune cancer patients, they've come back with low vitamin D levels, and all the autoimmune diabetes and lupus, and also like patients with dyslipidemias, like cholesterol issues. So there's a whole range of autoimmune disorders such as those.
Autoimmune means, in my understanding, that means that the body sort of turns on itself. And what I'm understanding is that true? Okay, so like psoriasis on the body is autoimmune, eczema.
Absolutely.
What other kinds of things are autoimmune?
So basically those things, and then also like the diabetes, that's like a really big one. Lupus, and then there's also cancer. There's all of those are autoimmune disorders, and like thyroid issues. Yeah, that's autoimmune. Like
I want to touch on the fact that we're mentioning GMOs and cancer in the same sentence, and some people think, oh, you can't go there. That's so extreme. You're going to get in trouble or whatever. You're going to get harassed. Here's the thing. There are scientific studies proving that glyphosate increased the growth of breast cancer cells. This is from a study. It's on our website. I can't pronounce his name. He's from Thailand. And this was in the parts per trillion, very tiny amounts. It increased the growth of breast cancer cells. There was another study that showed the increase of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a cancer. So we have hundreds of studies actually showing harm now from GMOs, and many more as well from, hundreds of studies from glyphosate, and many more from GMOs as well. A good source for that is GMO Free USA. They have, I don't know, it's over a couple thousand now. And on our website, we just have a handful of them that I have read through and I've used in my blogs, and that's on momsacrossamerica.com under data. And you can see all of them there. And on my blogs, I review quite a few of the studies and try to explain it in a way that makes sense to me and other people that are not scientists. I want to reiterate that I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert scientist. I'm not an expert doctor. I am an expert mom, and I'm an expert of my body and my children's bodies, just as all of you are. And I think it's so important for us to be having conversations with our doctors, especially doctors like you that research, that listen, that don't poo-poo, the GMOs because of progress. So many people don't want to make assessments about GMOs because they don't want to seem averse to progress. And what I have to say, I'm sure you have a lot to say about that. What I have to say about that is that lead pipes in Rome were considered progress at one point. And, you know, we really have to think about, if just because something is, does it really mean it ought to be? No, that's a fallacy. And we really need to look at what is the impact on our children, and what is the impact of ignoring the possible impact. Like if we just say, oh, it's not, it's safe. There's so many safety studies showing it's safe from the chemical companies that stand to benefit from it, right? It's safe. What is the consequence of that? Well, if you're wrong, tragic harm is happening to America from the result of ignoring the potential risk. But if other people who are saying, listen, there is something that's harmful about this product and we should avoid it, the only impact on us is that we're eating organic food and we need to budget a little better, right? And organic food is the way food always used to be. At once upon a time, all food used to be organic. So there's nothing wrong with believing that there might be something wrong, right, with GMOs and toxic chemicals, and avoiding them. There's no real negative impact to human beings. The negative impact is to the sales of the chemical companies. That's where the negative impact is.
And that's the thing. And if you look at a lot of the studies that the Monsantos, the chemical companies talk about, there was even years ago in Forbes magazine, they came out with an article saying, oh, and here it is, the truth about how safe GMOs are. Well, if you pull that, it's a lit review with, you know, going through all the different studies. And if you pull that lit review that they were talking about, you will see who funded it, Kellogg. Now, Kellogg was also the same company that spent almost $800,000 to defeat Prop 37 to label GMOs. And then you have to ask a question, why? Why would they do that, right?
What do they have to hide? Yeah, what do they have to hide? If it's so healthy and so nutritious, and you're going to start your day off in a great way with GMOs, what do they have to hide? I just have to say, for all the moms out there, that we just love it that a doctor is saying this, that you know this. It's just, we're just thrilled, because so many of us feel like we're the only ones that know and our doctors don't know, and you do. And just God bless you. Thank you so much for being informed and for finding out.
Of course, it's my pleasure. That's my job.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about how do you see the impact in your clinic? Like what for instance are you seeing are the results, or the potential results or impact of GMOs and glyphosate? And for those of you that also would like to ask questions, I have the little thing open on my Google Hangout. I can't see if you've already asked questions, so please ask them again, and they should show up in my thing. If not, then put them under the comments on the website as well. But so can you tell us a little bit more, what types of ailments and things are you seeing, do you think, that are connected to GMOs and glyphosate?
Okay, so nutrition is a big part of what I do for my patients. I teach them how to read labels, I teach them how to grocery shop, I teach them what to look for. And I have patients come in for programs. They want to do a detox, so we talk about that. I'll talk about a particular patient of mine who came in, chronic sinusitis, chronic infections, sinus infections. So much so, he had one surgery to help fix it. Didn't work. He was basically in and out of his doctor's office every other week or so, getting an antibiotic. And you know, by the time he got to me, he had another sinus infection, and his doctor was suggesting possibly a second surgery. And he was referred to me by one of my other patients, and we sat down and I talked to him about food and explained to him GMOs. I talked about gluten. We talked about organic, and he changed his diet. He really stopped eating certain foods I told him to eat. And I will tell you, within a month, his sinus infection had cleared. And within 2 months, he didn't need another surgery. He was not only feeling better, he hadn't gotten any more sinus infections. His energy was better. He was sleeping better. Overall, he was feeling better. I mean, that was really huge. And then down the road, his, cholesterol, and I've had patients with chronic cholesterol issues where their doctors can't help them. Like, they don't know what to do besides give them a statin. And when we change the way they eat, these patients all come back and their cholesterol goes down. Their entire lipid panel is so much better. And I had actually worked, I did some consulting for a doctor out in Brentwood for some time. And all I would do for her patients is put them on a particular nutritional lifestyle program. And every single time we would run labs 6 weeks, and they would just change the way they ate. They would, add in some other protocols, but the food was the big thing. And I'll tell you, their labs changed. They were better. They were improved. Their blood sugars were stabilized. Their A1Cs came down. Their lipid levels were, more imbalanced than they were with their triglycerides, and their HDLs, which is the good cholesterol that we need in our bodies, would go up. The bad cholesterols would come down. They were all at normal ranges. And these are things that they couldn't change before, no matter what they were doing.
And this was primarily from diet, from avoiding GMOs and eating organic, primarily.
Yes, primarily diet. And then,
and what other things might have attributed to that? What other types of things did you recommend this patient do?
Well, we did acupuncture, of course, and to help reduce inflammation and, do some other things for them depending on what they were coming in for. And we also did meditation, because I teach meditation. It's really important. So we would do meditation. I would have them do either some yoga, some walking, hiking, Pilates, some type of form of exercise to build into their lifestyle program. But that was pretty much it.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that it really is holistic. Holistic means the whole body, and you really bring in mind, body, and soul, and incorporate all of those. And the thing about America is I say that a lot of us have the disease of ease. We want it fast, hot, tasty, cheap, easy, all of that. And so we want to go to the doctor and just get a pill and be done with it. But that's not going to impact the whole body, the mind, body, and spirit. And when you're doing yoga, you feel more confident. When you take a walk, you feel connected with nature, especially if you take off your shoes and you're grounding with the earth, right? And if you're meditating, you're spiritually connecting, and you're overall happier. So I love that you incorporate the mind, body, and spirit in there.
Absolutely. It's a lifestyle. It's all a lifestyle.
That's great. And we did have a question from one of the viewers saying, where do you send your patients to for information about GMOs? I have to ask, do you send them to Moms Across America, or do you send them to different Organic Consumers Association, or where do you send your patients to find out more about GMOs and pesticides? I
do. Moms Across America. and also, there's a lot of GMO, like the non-GMO project. I have that. I inform them about that, as well as I know Jeffrey Smith has the institute, his institute.
Responsible technology, yep.
And I actually have brochures in my office, so I give them brochures with what's in a GMO, what to avoid.
That's excellent. Yes, we're very grateful for Jeffrey M. Smith, who's the director of Genetic Roulette. If you have not seen it, that is highly recommended. He is the one who really broke ground with so many people in 2012. It was voted the most transformational movie of the year. And the reason why so many of us are here, and when I met him, I cried because I told him I personally believed that we were preventing my son from having stomach cancer. He had extreme allergies, red rash around his mouth, an allergy to carrageenan, which is a seaweed food thickener that's in just about everything the kids like, and it can lead to stomach ulcers and stomach cancer. And there were children that were around 12 that were showing up with stomach cancer. And at the time, my son was about 8, and he's 12 now, and he is totally fine. And his allergies have been drastically reduced, down from a 19 down to a 0.2. He even had carrageenan a few times and didn't react at all. And I believe that's because his gut is healed, and his, maybe not completely healed, but it's much better. We take raw organic sauerkraut every day for dinner. He's had green drinks and smoothies and, you know, all of that. And we eat all organic now. We're at home. I think we pretty much eat all organic out as well. There's many times if we go to a restaurant, my son will just not eat it. We'll have to go to Whole Foods and get a little container, and we bring our food into the restaurant and we just say we have a special diet, and he'll eat his organic food. Actually, all my kids will. They'll eat their organic food and still enjoy the company, you know, of the people that we're dining with, but we'll eat our organic food. And it's just, I just really am so excited about our children these days that decide to do that and take those steps. So enough about my child, but this is why I relate so much to your testimonials, because I've seen it in my own home, you know, these amazing testimonials. Can you tell us a little bit more about what else have you seen as far as your patients recuperating?
So, you know, that, you know, basically things like that with a lot of like allergies, a lot of chronic sinus issues. I've had patients with, you know, the diabetes, cholesterol, basically things like that. It was interesting. I have a story. I had a patient who was a new patient who came in just to do a detox. And when I sat down with her, you know, I spent an hour and a half for consultation, and I sat down with her and talked to her about GMO versus organic. She'd never heard of GMO before. And she actually, you know, was really on board with changing out her food, especially when she did her own research. She heard what I had to say about it, and she did her own research on it, and she was, again, shocked. And so she was changing out to organic. Well, her and her kids lived with her sister and her sister's family. And at first her sister wasn't, you know, sure about the organic, you know, whether she wanted to switch over. But since my patient was doing it, they cooked together. They would cook meals together. And before that, she said that they would season everything. They would season it to give it flavor. And once they changed it over to organic, what was interesting is that not only did their kids eat a lot of vegetables, but they actually requested it. They wanted more. They said, no, you have to keep cooking like this. And what else they realized is that they felt better after eating. They weren't as bloated. They didn't have digestive issues. And also what they found is they didn't need all the seasonings, because she would tell me that this food is really tasty on its own. We don't need to season it like we used to. So that was really interesting. And the whole family, like her family and her sister's family, were all on board with all organic foods.
Isn't that, you know, fantastic? It's hard when your family members aren't on board. It can cause a rift in the family. It's very difficult. And so for all the people out there that are trying to have your family members get on board with this, we just really encourage you to come from love and maybe a little fun, and just say, you know, try it, you'll like it, be playful, right? Maybe cook together, show them how to do it. You know, bring some organic food and give it to them, and then just say, it's organic, don't you love it? You know, it does taste better. And in fact, that's the #1 reason why men switch to organic, is because it tastes better. If you taste an organic peach or an organic tomato, and then you taste a conventional one, it is a world of difference. So I love that you mentioned that about the spices, because it's just, you don't, and also those spices have a lot of MSG, and we need to avoid MSG and all aspartame and all these genetically modified chemicals. I also want to mention, I want to go back to when you mentioned vitamin D as well, because I have a vitamin D deficiency. I'm working on that, and I use a lotion rather than a supplement, because the majority of the supplements that I find are made with corn oil or soy. And the outside of the supplement, the casing, can often be made with cellulose. And we don't know what cellulose is. It could be corn husks from GMOs. We don't know. So I just want to put out there for everybody that if you are going to be supplementing your vitamins and minerals, be very sure that it's non-GMO. I don't know how many organic supplements there are out there right now, but at least non-GMO, and be aware of that.
Well, and that brings up a really good point. And this is the thing. the supplement industry is now a billion-dollar industry. I mean, they're making a lot of money. You can literally start a supplement company in your garage. There's no FDA regulation on it, which can be a good thing, and then it cannot be a good thing. So the thing is, I tell my patients that really be careful of what you get. You know, just not a couple of years ago, a bunch of places, Costco's, GNC's, they got fined because their fish oils had higher levels of mercury. So you have to be really careful. And I always tell patients, get a pharmaceutical grade supplement. Like for me, I have certain brands that I use because I know what's in them. I can literally get an assay, which basically is this big, this much, and it goes through that particular bottle, and it tells me how it was tested. The supplements I use are third-party tested, so it's not tested by the company who's selling it. It's tested by an outside company, so we know it's valid. And the ingredients are non-GMO, and they're very high-quality raw ingredients. And so that's what's really important. You have to be very careful of what you're supplementing because, too, like companies can actually say, oh, you get 400 milligrams of this supplement, and if they might put 200 and you don't know, they can do that. So you just have to be really careful and what you use. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it's so important. And again, it's the labeling issue, right? Have it labeled. If it's going to say cellulose on there or plant materials, why wouldn't it say what kind of plant materials and whether or not they're GMO? It's so important. And we do want to make sure that we can trust our suppliers. So if they want to know what brands that you use, we won't do a commercial on that today. We're not about marketing certain brands right now, but they can always contact you through the website if they want to follow up with you. You're not giving medical advice to particular people. Of course, they must, meet with their doctors and, all of that. But we want to make sure that they can follow up with you if they'd like. What is your website?
So my website is www.drpriyaadvani.com. So it's DRP as in Paul, RIYA, D as in David, V as in Victor, ANI.com.
drpriyaadvani.com. And we have, of course, the infographic on our website, on our Facebook page, and we have it listed, your name listed there, and they can look it up there. But before we go, we still have a little bit more time. If anybody has any questions, please make sure to ask underneath the video that's on the website or through Google+. I'm not seeing any questions through Google+, so I don't know if it's working correctly, but we do have some people that will help get us those questions. Let's just ask a little bit more. What types of ailments? Or maybe let's just ask more. What types of treatments? Why do you think it works for people who come in, say, with allergies? Why is it that switching to organic and non-GMO and doing things more like meditation and yoga and all of that? What's actually going on? Why do you see that working so well in your patients? Because when we spoke earlier, and you mentioned you treat children and adults with a wide variety of illnesses. And I asked you, when they go GMO and organic, what's the percentage that they get better? And you mentioned 90% show some improvement and maybe even get better. Maybe not all of them, especially the cancer patients who have received chemo and radiation and all that it's very difficult. But a lot of your patients see a huge improvement. What is the reasoning for that? What are you seeing?
Well, there's the biochemistry of the body. Is kind of what we discussed with, if you look at some of these studies, they're going to show how the glyphosate, especially it's the glyphosate, affects the biochemistry and the metabolic processes that occur in the body. So they inhibit certain enzymes that will help in detoxification. They deplete certain minerals, as we discussed, the vitamin D. And the glyphosate isn't GMO, or even just fruits and vegetables that have been sprayed with the chemicals. and with the glyphosate, right? And then with the acupuncture helps significantly. There are studies that have shown that it increases the endorphins in your body, so it's really helps reduce the stress response in your body, and it also helps increase just the way the process. It helps different systems in your body. Like it helps activate the vagus nerve to help with like thyroid issues. It helps with the adrenals. Like when I see patients with a lot of adrenal issues, it helps to decrease cortisol in the body. And also meditation. There's studies that show the meditation has shown to help decrease cortisol levels in the body, decrease the immune response, so that people aren't, when they're stressed, their immune system doesn't go completely haywire. It's more balanced. And, you know, that's the meditation does a lot of that as well. And so it's really a lifestyle. And then, of course, we exercise. We move our bodies. We have to keep moving our bodies. You know, we live in such a stagnant society where we go to work, we sit all day. There's no movement. Well, how can a lot of these processes work through our body? How can our blood flow? How can our blood move if we're sitting? We have to get some movement. We have to increase the oxygen throughout the body, you know, and it's a balance of everything. And that's what's really important for people to understand. Absolutely. The nutrition is probably the biggest thing. And everything else, the acupuncture is fabulous because it, again, triggers a lot of these other processes and metabolic processes to start functioning, and it activates systems in your body. And then the meditation, it creates more balance in your body. And, you know, then the exercise, it's all a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. And that's what I think it's really important for people to understand.
Yeah, it's a shift in taking care of ourselves, in seeing our bodies as sacred, and really thinking about the entire body, the whole picture, the movement, the water, the connection with the earth and everything. So it's really great. I appreciate you bringing in the holistic aspect of that. I didn't expect to hear so much about that. And you remind me, it's like I hear my mom in my head, you know, Zen, make sure to breathe, make sure to eat, you know, do deep breathing exercises, and, you know, have you taken a walk? And, you know, we need to listen to our moms, right? We need to make sure that we think of the whole body and the whole picture. Yeah, it's so great. Do you have any other testimonials, maybe of like kids or people that had particularly challenging illnesses or conditions that you were able to help recuperate?
You know, I've had patients with, like, you know, the digestive issues, and I had, if you want to talk specifically about a patient, I mean, I've had a bunch of patients with digestive issues, and
yeah, please.
You know, we've changed the way they eat their foods. I actually had a patient who texted me not too long ago, and she said, I just got back from Europe, and she said, when I eat gluten and pasta and cheese here, I feel horrible. I ate all of that when I was in Europe, and I felt great. And then I reminded her about what we had talked about with the GMOs, and I think her just experiencing that was really important. And she said, that's it. I'm going to the Santa Monica Co-op. She's like, I'm going to change everything to organic. I'm not eating any of that GMO food anymore. So that was quite funny. But yeah, and I've had patients who, one specific, she had serious digestive issues since she was in high school, and she was probably in her 30s when she came to see me. She had been to GI specialists. They couldn't figure out. They actually wanted to put her on medication. They couldn't figure out how to help her. So I said, okay, we have to do a detox. So we actually did a special detox where I gave her a particular product. We took out all the inflammatory foods, the wheat, the gluten, the dairy, the caffeine, the alcohol, like all of that, this refined sugar. And if you look at all those foods, what do they have a lot of? A lot of those are made with GMOs. So we, and
they're sprayed with glyphosate. Sugar is sprayed with glyphosate. Exactly. So when it says cane sugar, even though it's not high fructose corn syrup, cane sugar can be just as bad because they're sprayed with glyphosate. In South America, 20,000 young men died because they worked on the sugarcane fields and their livers and kidneys were so damaged. They died from glyphosate. And in Sri Lanka, there were workers. I don't know which crop they were working on. It might have been cotton, but they were spraying. They're working around spraying glyphosate, and Sri Lanka actually banned glyphosate there for a period of time. So there has been massive amounts of evidence of harm from glyphosate, and you think you're eating, natural cane sugar. Well, that could mean sprayed with glyphosate sugar. It's very important.
Exactly. No, that's really important to remember, is if it's not organic, it's probably genetically modified. But so for this patient, what we did is we changed that, and I put on a product to reduce the inflammation in her gut. Because if you look at the studies too, there's a whole, like, the glyphosate actually creates this dysbiosis, which actually basically what it does is it stops a metabolic process from working in the body, and it also
sorry, excuse me. What does metabolic process mean for us that are
sure. So it's basically how chemicals, like we have these chemical reactions in our body. The metabolic process is called shukanate. Okay, it's the shukanate process that's the metabolic process. But what they're finding is that, and it's how we have different enzymes and how they react and create these chemical, like our, the mitochondria, how it uses ATP and it creates energy in our body. So that's another metabolic process. So this particular one affects the gut, and how with gut bacteria, it actually works on this shukanate metabolic process. And with the glyphosate, it stops that from happening. So it basically, the bottom line, to make this simple, is it basically increases the pathogenic bacteria in our gut. So of course, people tend to have more digestive issues with the GMOs, because the glyphosate is causing this inflammation to occur because this bacterial gut pathogenic growth is happening in our bodies. And so, okay, so like for this patient, for example, like we took her off all these foods. I put her on a product that basically reduced the inflammatory response from happening in her gut. And can I tell you, after a month, she couldn't believe it. Like, first of all, she stopped having these reactions significantly, these digestive reactions, where she was basically going to the bathroom like 5 times a day, 4 or 5 days a week. It was really intense for her. And after we did this in a month, we found that her gut was healed, and she stopped having these reactions. And then we thought, okay, let's see if there's a particular food. Well, we found it was the gluten. It was anything that had gluten in it that was causing her body to react. And, just by decreasing all these inflammatory foods in her diet made such a significant difference. And she tells me all the time, she's like, this changed my life. She thought she was allergic to all these other things, everything she ate. And that's the other thing, is like, people think that they have all these allergens, but because of the glyphosate, it creates people to kind of develop allergies to other things because their gut is not healthy.
Yes, that's exactly what happened with my sons. I got them tested for allergies, and it came back that some of them had 19 or 21 different food intolerances. And my doctor was wise to it. He said, the majority of American children have leaky gut like this. This is leaky gut. This is tiny holes are in their small intestines. The food is leaking out. So whatever they ate this week, it shows up as a food intolerance, like carrots and mangoes and cantaloupe. I mean, bananas. This is ridiculous. And he said the majority of children in America have this condition today. You're just testing and you're finding out. And that if you were to take your children back here in 2 weeks, they would show up to have food intolerances to whatever they ate that week. And I was like, what is going on? And then I realized the glyphosate connection. This was about, I guess now it was about 2 years ago that I found out about how glyphosate sprayed on just about everything. And so at that same time, I tested my son for glyphosate in his urine because we finally found a lab to do that. And this was when he also had a sudden onset of autism symptoms and hitting, screaming, red rash around his mouth, grades dropping, all kinds of other health issues. And we removed everything from his diet that could expose him to glyphosate, which is, again, the gluten in the wheat. The wheat is sprayed with glyphosate as a drying agent. Thousands and thousands of acres are sprayed with Roundup as a drying agent of wheat, and not in Europe, right? They do this here. And so I took it out of his diet because it didn't show up. The glyphosate did not show up in my other 2 children's urine because they were gluten intolerant. So they weren't eating gluten. And this son was. And so we took it out of his diet, went all organic, and also put in raw organic sauerkraut. We did have to treat the fungus that was in the pathogenic gut bacteria, right? The fungus that cost $650 a month. Very expensive. But once we got the fungus out, we also had to treat the actual gut, like restore the gut bacteria. So we put in the raw organic sauerkraut and probiotics, and within 6 weeks, his glyphosate levels were no longer detectable and his autism symptoms were gone. And they have not come back in 2 years. And I'm just so sure that this is it for so many people. We have to take care of the gut. And when we restore the gut bacteria, when we remove the glyphosate that's destroying the gut bacteria and the GMOs, then we can restore our health. And I believe, like you said, that 90% of the people could have this type of result if they stick to it, if they really go organic, if they really do restore their gut bacteria, if they really do take care of their mind, body, and soul, right? You can't just sit in front of a TV and watch horror movies and think you're going to feel good, right? You got to take care of everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and being called to dinner time for sharing your experiences and taking your time out. I know you're very busy with a lot of patients, and it's just I'm just so grateful to have your involvement, not only in sharing this information with us, but in your involvement with having HR 1599 defeated. That we do not want the Dark Act to pass, and we want Senate Bill 511 to say yes. We want people to say yes to Senate Bill 511 and yes to the House Bill 913. Those are for mandatory GMO labeling. And you can go, just Google, find your senator, and the senate.gov site will come up, and you type in your zip code, and you can find your senator. It is not scary to call your senator's office, right? You met with the senator's aide. How was it for you to meet with your senator's aide?
They were amazing. And I feel so fortunate that I was able to do that and to be able, to be so involved with this process. And it's so important. And it takes just a second. They're very nice people on the other end of the phone. You are a constituent. You have that right to express what you believe and to ask for what you want. So please call your senators and tell them, to vote no on 1599, because it's, the other thing is, I don't know if a lot of people realize, but Section 102 in that bill will make not only mandatory GMO labeling illegal, but companies that want to voluntarily label GMOs will not be able to do so. It will be illegal for them to do so. They will have to go through some crazy recertification process through the USDA. It could take over a year to get that through. And, you know, things like the non-GMO project will be non-existent. So, you know, please make that call. It just takes a second, and we would really appreciate that.
Yes, that's awesome. And what you're talking about, the non-GMO labeling, that I did hear lately, just FYI, that might be being taken out. That part of it, they might still be able to let the non-GMO project verified company label things. So that's debatable, but that's only going to happen if we speak up about it, right?
Exactly.
That's only going to happen if we speak up, and they're only going to change the bill if we speak up. And for the people who are resigned and doubtful about our government and think that they don't hear us, I totally get your resignation and your doubt, and you may not think it's worth your time, but they do hear us. And in fact, they can't take action unless they hear from us. They have to have a groundswell of people to combat the chemical company lobbyists that go there. They have just one person told me that the chemical companies have 20 people that are being paid $20,000 a month to go and pound the pavement at the Hill every day and meet with our senators and convince them that it's completely safe and that they need GMOs, they need these chemicals, and they are just lying to them, and they're convincing our farmers that they can't farm without GMOs and toxic chemicals. And our farmers are setting aside their ingenious, you know, methods that their grandfathers and their great-grandfathers and great-grandmothers used for hundreds, if not thousands of years. They're setting those methods aside, and they are forgetting that they can farm without GMOs and toxic chemicals. And we moms can ban GMOs and toxic chemicals from our tables right now if we just are conscious to what we eat and we make those choices. And so thank you very, very much for, oh, and somebody just asked, sorry, about isn't HR 1599 already over? Well, it's over in the Senate. I'm sorry, it's over in the Congress. It is, there are authors that need to be found to present it to the Senate, and they will vote in the Senate this fall if they can get 2 authors to pass it in the Senate, and then it would go to the president to be signed into law. And that's what we need to stop. But the counter to that is the Senate Bill 511, which does have authors right now, and also the House Bill 913, which does have authors. It is there, and we do need to call our senators. Everybody needs to call. I would suggest please call every week. Email, fax, letter writing is the most effective, you know, besides phone calls. Letter writing, a handwritten letter, not a form letter, not a petition. A handwritten letter is super important to send our senators, and it only takes a few minutes, and it makes it. We've had representatives that say if they have 10 people that call about a certain issue, they put that on the docket as, like, you know what I mean? In 100 people, for sure, they're discussing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why it's so important. And these are the state senators that we're talking about. And the thing, though, too, is it did pass through the House. It's sitting on the Senate floor, and they have to have what we call a companion bill for them to pick it up. And so we don't want them to pick it up. They have a certain amount of time before it goes to the bucket and goes nowhere. But we need your voices to be heard. So please make those calls.
Thank you so much. It's just so thrilling for moms to hear a doctor talking not just about GMOs and glyphosate and how we can get better, but also how to get involved in our political process. I'm sure that everybody watching right now wants you to be their doctor, and we just want to encourage them to ask their doctor, right, to find out about GMOs and glyphosate, because you didn't know for a little while and you found out, and now you're treating your patients in a completely different manner than many doctors do. It may not have been very different from how you treated them before, but it's something that you're seeing is highly effective. And so we really urge everyone to tell your doctors about momsacrossamerica.com and the data page and Institute for Responsible Technology and the many different websites that have great information about GMOs and glyphosate, and continue taking care of your whole self.
Absolutely. And bring your studies into your doctor. Show the doctors the studies that you have from, Moms Across America. You have studies. So bring those in, talk to your doctors, make a conversation. And it's really important. And just know that your voice is much more powerful than $1 million. So Monsanto can throw their money away and let them do that. But our voices together combined are so much more powerful than that. So just remember that.
I'm going to quote you. I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone who's watching today and who will be watching in the future. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate every single thing that you do to let your senators know about the HR 1599, that we want to say no to that, and yes to 511, and yes to 913, and yes to good health for America, for our future, for future generations, for our families right now, in our homes and in our neighborhoods. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Advani, for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.